Hey everybody, Mike Pfeiffer with Pfeiffer Hobby Supply. Today we're going to talk about adding push buttons to control your turnouts from the fascia of your layout. And I know it's been talked about before, but I'm going to show you again how I'm going to do it on the ACT. Okay, this is what we're going to be creating. It is basically a KD switch, normally open switch, push button, and you can see the push button down in there. And today I'm going to show you not only how to create this, which is pretty evident what it is, but how to mount these on your fascia and why we do it like this. So let's get into it. Okay everybody, to create this push button switch in the first place, as I said, these are Kato number 165 quickie switches. These are not the same switches that they used to have years ago. These are a new type of switch. And what I did, obviously, was I started by going to Lowe's and buying a contractor 10-pack of 3/4 inch slip caps. That's all they are, is slip caps for PVC sprinkler pipe. I bought 2 of those because right now I'm gonna probably need about 16 of them. Sorry for the traffic going by, but it seems like we have a freeway out here today. And anyway, then what I do is I take the cap and I drill. This is a 1/4 inch drill bit, and obviously my trusty Milwaukee drill. And what I do is the drill wants to find the bottom of the hole, and I'm just going to drill a hole, a 1/4 inch hole in the bottom. And be sure and clean all the junk out of the bottom of the hole here, because it's kind of hard to do once you've drilled the hole and once you screw the switch in, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about there. So you can see down in there that I've cleaned all the flashing out of there. Okay. I'm also, and you can use any kind of knife, this just happens to be my trusty old utility knife from the phone company, but I'm going to chamfer the edge of this hole here just a little bit, and I'll show you why in just a second. It's not because it needs to be clean, but it's because we're going to thread the switch in there instead of trying to put a nut on it. So here's what we have. We have a little chamfered edge on the back. We have a 1/4 inch hole in the middle, and I've cleaned out all the inside. Now we're going to go over to a vise, my vise. Hopefully you have a vise, and show you how I thread these in. If not, you could thread these in with a pair of pliers. But let's go over and take a look. Okay, here we are at the vise, and this is one of the Kato switches. And what I start by doing with the Katos, and I have some that weren't Katos but are a similar design, I started by taking the lock ring, the lock washer, basically out, and thread the nut all the way back down. That gives me enough thread to just fit through the hole once I get done threading it into the inside of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to clamp the base of this into the vise, and I will do it. I'll do it on this side so you guys can see better, possibly. And you don't want to squeeze this too tight and ruin the switch. But you can see that I've clamped it into the vise, and all I do is hold the cap fairly square, or as square as I can, to the switch. And this plastic is pretty soft, so you can just start threading it on. And I know you can't see the threads here, how it's threading in, But take my word for it, it is threading in, and it's pretty stiff. You know, it's a pretty stiff. I have to tighten it up a little bit. In fact, I lost the grip on it, so I'm going to get a new grip, and I'm just continuing to thread it down until it contacts the nut. And once it contacts the nut, I just take it off, and there you have it. And these 3/4 inch caps give you enough room for, I think, just about anybody with even fat fingers to get down in there and push this button. And by the way, I'll add, and I haven't done it so far, but the reason you want to recess these on your fascia is you don't want to have somebody leaning up against the fascia and hitting a button and throwing one of your turnouts unintentionally. That's why we're recessing these. I know this is not a new idea. I think it's been covered in Model Railroader. I know there's other guys that have done this probably on YouTube, but I'm just going to post it on our how-to page. So now you've wound up with another one of these done. Now I'm going to show you what we do to mount these on the fascia. Okay, everybody, here we are in the room once again. What I'm going to show you here is, here's your completed cap, which we've already seen. Okay, your completed push button. What it will require you to do is buy an 1 3/8 or possibly a little smaller. I don't know what falls under this, but this is an 1 3/8 hole saw. And if you look, it's almost the same diameter as the cap, and that is the idea. And let me take the camera down here and show you how I'm cutting these holes to insert these. Okay, wherever you choose to mount these things, what you need to do is make sure you don't have anything behind, obviously, which I have done here. And what I have done is I have lined these holes up in line with the turnout that they're going to throw. And let me see if I can get you up here. You can see that there's a turnout right here, and my first hole is obviously in line with that. So hopefully, I mean, I can do that all along. I have some that are next to each other, and what I plan on doing is putting a hole on the bottom, putting a hole up above. The hole up above will be for the one furthest away. The hole below will be for the one nearest you. So that's how it's going to work. And I'm only doing this in my yard. I think it might be okay to do this on a control panel, of course. But and I am using Kato Unitrack, and in a minute I am going to get into how I'm doing this with a push button. But nevertheless, right now we're talking about getting the push buttons built and the push button mounted. So on this particular hole here, you can see that I've cut it and I've cleaned the edge off. This one here still got some ratty looking stuff around the edge, and generally all it takes is just a thumbnail to go around and clean the edge of the masonite off. You just want to have a nice smooth edge. And now let me show you what we're going to do. Okay, now you can see what I've done here is I've taken some nice strong masking tape, not the wimpy painter's tape, but some nice strong masking tape, put it on the fascia over the holes, put the caps in from the back, and got them stuck to the tape. Then what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to do it yet because I don't have any of these wired yet, but I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to hot glue around the back side of this. And this happens to be just a Woodland Scenics one. You could use anybody's. This is a low temp gun with foam stuck all over it and everything. But anyways, you get the idea. What we would do is go in and go right around the edge of the cap, and that will hold it in semi-permanently. If we ever did need to take it out, we could take it out at that time because it is not permanent. And then what you would wind up with is you're just going to wind up with a flush-mounted PVC cap here with the push button in it. And if I get one or two wired up, I will show you how it's going to work. Okay, everybody. While this is not mounted in a cap, this is one of the push buttons. And for those of you who don't know, I am using DS64s to power. I have been for quite some time using DS64s, Digitracks, to control my turnouts. I recently realized, or it dawned on me, that hey, I can operate those by push button through the instructions, per the instructions in the Digitracks book. And here's the book, and it says if you want to throw with a normally open switch, if you want to throw switch 1 on this particular DS64, you run a wire from the switch number, or the S1 or S2 or S3 or S4, whatever you've numbered those switches to inside the DS64. You can run a wire from that to the normally open switch, and from the normally open switch to a common wire on that DS64. So if you wanted to do 4 of these, you could have one common wire that went and daisy chained to 4 switches, and then one switch from each one of the S terminals here, and it allows you to operate the turnout. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. They will be able to be operated from the DCC system or the controller, or they will be operated by push button on the front. Gavin and I decided that we would do these by hand. However, I don't like the idea of that, simply because there again we're going to get into reaching over scenery that's going to eventually be here. So I thought putting these push buttons on the front would make this this job of throwing turnouts just a little bit easier, and not have to, first of all, go into your switch function and look for the turnout number and all of that. You just have to push the button where you're standing. We're going to give it a shot, and hopefully it works. If not, I'll be replacing a bunch of fascia. But anyway, I know the system works, but this is the way we're going to do it. I'm going to push this button. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and I'm going to show you how this button works on this turnout here. You push it once, throws the turnout, push it once, again, it closes. Every time you push it, it changes the direction of the turnout. Let me do this. Let me try and get in the picture. Ready? So you can see that I have already tested it, and it does work using the button. So now what I guess I will try and show you is the DS64 and how this is actually wired up, just in case you didn't get it on the paper. Okay, here is the DS64. I just happened to pick one that had a vacant slot, and through the particular switch, this red wire goes to the turnout, to the Kato turnout up there that we were operating through the bottom of the foam. Okay, and then I just hooked up this switch temporarily so I could make sure this worked. And as you can see, or maybe not, anyway, that is the S1 button. Okay, you got A and you got S. It's connected to the S side. Then the other, which is the white wire here, goes up and goes to the common plus. There's a common plus sign right there. I think you can see it. And if I push this, you can hear the turnout. And it's as simple as that, guys. You could just use the DS64 as the transmitting method to throw turnouts. You don't have to number them. You don't have to operate them through the DCC. Just use the DS64 to actually throw the turnout in opposite direction every time you push it. So that's how easy it is, guys. I only have 4 DS64s down here. I'm going to have to add a bunch to accomplish this, because as you look down here, you can see that I have a whole poop load of wires hanging there. And down here on the dark end, I have a bunch of turnouts that I need to connect to these push buttons. So let me hook a couple of these up or get them mounted, and we'll see how they work. Okay, you can see that I have this one here hooked up. It's not necessary to put any insulators over this wire because these two are never going to come in contact with each other. You can see that I have the wire routed up and back, and it's kind of dark under here, but you can see that it goes way back there down to where the DS64 is. You can also see that I've hot glued the thing in place, and you can also see that it's very sturdy. This one also is mounted and it's very sturdy. But let's go down the other end and see exactly how this is hooked up. By the way, this is the wire that comes off of the turnout that I'm feeding, which will happen to be number 2, because I'm counting from right to left from looking at the layout. So this will be number 2 on the DS64 that it's going to. This particular turnout wire right here will be switch 1. It's the first switch coming into the yard. So this will be number 2, this will be number 3, and so on down the line, which is number 3 is right here. But anyway, let's go down and look at the DS64. Okay, here we are at the DS64s. You can see that I have the turnout that I just connected attached to switch 2. These two terminals would be switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, and those two would be switch 4. I have them connected to number 2 because that's what I want it to be. Here's my common wire, and here's my one attached to the S2 button. That particular combination, number 2 switch and number 2 grounded and to the S2 button, gives me the combination I need of wiring to be able to push the push button on the front of the layout. And let's go back up there and try it one more time. Okay, so here's switch number 2. You can see that there's nothing here that you're going to brush up against and throw a switch, which I like. And that's pretty much the installation of it. I think as you can hear the birds chirping in the background, I do have my CD player hooked back up on the other side of the room. And we'll get into that in another update on the ACT. But for now, I think that about wraps it up on how to make the push button turnout controllers with the sprinkler caps for the fascia of your layout. And let's step back and just take a look. That's what it'll look like around the bottom of the fascia. Let me walk down here real fast. When I get down here, of course, I don't have a lot of room. So what I will be doing is, and here's a place in particular, right here, where 2 turnouts are together. And then the other turnout will be here. But these 2 turnouts, the actual throw bars is what I'm laying it up with, are right here. So you can see that right here I'm going to have 2 of them, one on top of the other. So I'm going to have to drill and take out some foam down underneath here because the foam is 2 inches thick. So I'm going to have to remove some foam to get it in there and get it put in place. But nevertheless, I think it'll work, one on top of the other, the top one being the furthest turnout, the bottom one being the nearest turnout. I only have a couple places that are like that, but we're gonna work on that and make sure that it's evident which turnout you're throwing. Anyway, that's the plan for now. You can see that I have a lot of them to do, so I better get busy. By the way, gang, this is the wire that I'm using. It's telephone wire, and you can see it's 1 pair 24 gauge. The gauge is not important. I prefer the 24 because it's easy to work with. And I forgot to also mention that on the when you're wiring up the switches, polarity does not matter because it just senses a pulse, okay, to throw the switch the opposite way that it's currently thrown. So anyway, the polarity is not important. The only way that polarity might be important is when you're hooking up the turnout itself to the DS64. Well, let me go under here and show you. Okay, here's the DS64 I showed you before. The only way it might make a difference, like I say, this wire does not make a difference polarity-wise. This wire, though, it comes from the turnout. If you're throwing the turnout with your DCC unit, and you know what number position 2 is here, and you're going to throw it with that, then it may make a difference, the red, well, whatever color you're using, whether this is this way or flop the other way, which way you want it to be normal, or thrown, or the closed position is what I'm saying. That's the only polarity issue there might be. But in my case, where I'm not going to be operating these from the DCC system, it doesn't matter to me, because every time I push the button, it's just going to change this polarity right here. So if you were going to use it both ways, with a push button and the DCC system, the polarity of the switch, this is the wire coming in from the switch, the turnout, it may be important here. Okay guys, I've got 1 through 7 hooked up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bottom one, and 7 the top. And they are all functioning. I have these two right next to each other. That's 6, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2. That would work if I didn't have a bunch of junk in it. And 1. That's it for today, guys. Okay, gang. I hope you enjoyed today's how-to video. And as usual, thanks for watching.